One of the most frustrating stages of being a photographer is when you know how to use all your gear, you know, aperture, shutter speed, ISO, white balance, all of that stuff, but you feel like you're lacking a little something in the ability to take fantastic pictures. You see pictures that other people have taken in exhibitions, in books, on Instagram or other social media, and you think those people can just take a great photo. You think they just have the eye, and you may be a little bit unconfident about your ability to develop that. But the good news is you can train your eye to see better photos so that when you're out taking photos, you can intentionally take better pictures. And I think in photography, intention is a really important thing, a really important concept. When you take a picture, you should always be intending to do something, intending to create a composition, intending to tell a story, intending to show what that thing is that was interesting to you. Um, so when you're out, you can train yourself to see things that are going to be more interesting as photos. And you can also train yourself to make better pictures of things that you see are interesting. So when you see something, you can understand what it is that makes photos interesting, and you can understand how you can therefore make more interesting pictures yourself. So here are 7 things that you can do to train yourself to develop a better eye as a photographer. Number 1, move your feet. Quite often as photographers, we pick up the camera, we put it to our eye, and we take a picture. What you need to consider, like in this photo here that I took in a boxing gym, is there are other things that you can bring into the photo that will make that picture more interesting. Here you can see that rather than just stand right next to this boxer, I moved around actually into another room and shot through a door, and I actually lay on the floor, and I got those ropes in the foreground and a bit of wall, and it kind of gives 2 things. It gives a sense of depth to the picture because there's a foreground interest, background, and also the subject. So you've got 3 layers: foreground, subject, background. That's a really interesting thing to see. And it also gives context of where this place is. It shows, without overpowering the shot, that this was in a boxing gym, a boxing ring. The ropes of the ring are there. This just means that the photo is much more interesting to look at, much more immersive. People get more of a story from the photo. But I didn't get that just by seeing that. I had to walk around, look for different angles, and move myself around to include things and exclude things from the frame. Moving your feet, moving your position is a really, really important thing to do, whether it's just simply putting your camera on the floor and getting a photo like this one, which makes it much more interesting, or shooting from above, or moving yourself so that you get some foreground or you exclude something. Moving around when you take your picture, using your feet to move yourself around the shot, see different angles, and then deciding what you are and are not going to incorporate into the shot is a really good way of training yourself, a really good training technique you can do before you take any photo. Move yourself around, move to see what you can include, move what you can exclude, move to see what happens if you change your angle. If you change your angle, what does that do to the background? What does that do to the subject? What does that do to the light? All of these things will enable you to see different things, and by doing it regularly, you'll train yourself to take better photos, and you'll train your eye. I see so many photos when people say, this is a photo of this, but it's got so much other stuff in it that actually, the photographer's intention was to show this, but what I see is something totally different. What you really need to do on a simple level is work on your ability to eliminate all other distractions from the picture. If you take things out of the picture, how does that improve things? If you add something into the picture, what does that change? But on a basic level, let's find something that you can photograph that's in an environment where there's lots of other stuff, and practice eliminating other elements. You can do this by moving your position. You can do this by shallow depth field. You can move this by actually removing things, or you can wait for things to move, but eliminate the noise from your photo. Just have one clear subject, and that alone will make your photo more impactful, because people will know what your intention was to show this thing. You in your mind might know what you wanted to show, like I said before, but other people see that image for the first time, and what they see is something totally different, some bright thing, some interesting things, some eye, a face, whatever. It pulls their attention away, and what you want them to look at is not what they first notice. So eliminate the noise. When you take a photo, always look around the edge of the frame, look at what can be excluded, what's behind, what's in front. Take stuff out either physically or by waiting or by changing your position or composing it or going and photographing a different version of the thing. But eliminate noise from your pictures is really good training to do some exercises in taking photos of things and just trying to remove as many distractions from your shot as possible. Number 3 is similar to number 2. It's adding and subtracting from your picture. What can you add to your picture to make it more interesting? If it's a wildlife shot, what can you add into the picture? Something about the environment that makes the photo tell more of a story. If it's a portrait shot, what can you do to add something and to tell something more about the context of the picture, or what this person does? What about if it's a building? You would need to show a little bit of where the building is, what the light was like, some clouds, some sky, some water, some reflections. What else can we add to the picture to make the picture more interesting? And then think, what can we subtract, or what can we reduce from the photo? What's distracting? Some wires, some trees, something sticking out someone's head, a bin, a bright colour thing, a face. What can we subtract from the photo to give the photo the meaning that we want it to have? So train yourself to always, when you take a photo, add some things to the photo, and what can you subtract from the photo? Add what you want to help that emphasizes your point, emphasizes your attention, and what can you subtract and reduce from the photo that takes away from your story, takes away from the composition, and takes away the general impact of your photo. Number 4 is spend some time looking at things that are not photography, but which are related. So let's look at some portraits. Look at Caravaggio, for example. Go to a gallery, Rembrandt. Look at how the masters of painting use light in their pictures. In the same way as photographers, they use light, and they had a similar dynamic range. They didn't go crazy with all this HDR stuff, but they used light to sculpt people's faces, sculpt objects, and illuminate scenes. They let the background go dark, or they had nice soft light. Landscapes were lit in a certain way or painted in a certain way. How did the masters of painting use light in their paintings? And we can use similar techniques for using natural light and studio lighting to paint light into our pictures, or use light in our pictures to make them look beautiful like the masters did. It's applicable to portraits, landscapes, architect. The use of light is common across both painting and photography, the way you use it. So go to a gallery, look at how paintings were made and have been made for hundreds of years. Those principles still apply to photography. Also look at cinematography. How do filmmakers use light? How do they light scenes? How do they light interviews, dialogue, landscapes, scenes of cars driving down roads? They use light in lovely ways as well. Tip number 5 is just use one focal length. So if you have a prime lens, just use that, whether it's 85, 24, 28, even sometimes using the wrong prime lens for what you're trying to shoot, like an 85 to do landscapes, can be interesting. It can train your eye quite hard to see different compositions. Even if you don't have a prime lens, just leave your zoom lens on one focal length for a day or for a week and see what happens. You'll find that you see different compositions. I've done it before. I took an 85 and I photographed some buildings, and I found it hard. I had to stand way further back into the bushes to get shots inside the room, but maybe take more interesting photos. I got some foliage in the foreground, a chair, everything was a bit flat and much different to the wide angle shot like this that I was aiming for. I got this shot instead, and actually I like them both, but for very different reasons. So use a focal length, maybe even use what you consider to be the wrong focal length for what you're shooting, and see what happens. Shoot architecture with a longer zoom, shoot architecture with an 85, shoot portraits with a 24mm lens. Not what you'd normally do, but being stuck with one focal length means you have to be much more creative with your composition sometimes. You have to shoot things from different positions, and you have to see things differently. Also, your eye starts to see things in that focal length, so you start to predict much better how a picture is going to look, because of, 85 is going to look like this, your 50 is going to look like this, your 35 is going to look like this, and you just get much better at composing with that focal length. It's a really good technique to try. Prime lenses are great anyway because of the large apertures, small, cheap, great image quality. So learning to work with just one prime lens can make you much more creative, can make you see things a different way. It can help you predict what it is that your photos are going to look, and see in a more photographic type of way. So you can actually train yourself to work with particular focal lengths and train your eye to see great compositions, and make yourself take more creative compositions by sticking with one focal length. Number 6 is look at shadows instead of light. This is kind of an interesting one because, often we as photographers look at light, but if you try to find shadows and focus on the patterns that shadows are making, you actually start to see light in a different way. So look at this picture. This is all about the shadows. We have lovely patterns. Without the shadows, this will not be very interesting. Shadows are as important to light. I say this when I do portraits, headshots, architecture. Thinking about light and shadow is really important. You can't think about light without thinking about shadow. You think about light too much. So next time, look for shadows. Don't look for light, look for shadows. Where you start to see shadows, work out how you can incorporate shadows into your picture, whether it's portraits, like I've said, landscapes, buildings, all sorts of stuff, objects. You can make pictures more interesting by thinking about how you use shadows in your picture, where the shadow falls, where you position it, what patterns they make, what the dark side of the photo is like compared to the bright side, how contrast works, how hard shadows versus soft shadows work. Think about shadows and you're really thinking about light. And if you think about shadows, again, another way of training your brain to look for something different, compose with light, compose with shadow, and it's another great way to train yourself to have a better eye as a photographer. And number 7, I think this is a really important one. It's something I'm guilty of not doing sometimes, and that is separate the memory from the photo. So I went to go on holiday, I come back, instantly have memories of when I took that photo. Oh, I thought that was going to be a great shot. Oh, that was a nice moment. I was happy. Oh, that building was great. Oh, that was a lovely scene. I come back and I pick those as my favorite photos because I'm associating that memory with that photo. But I think you could do that. That's great. You're excited to see your photos. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you want to do that, great. But then do another edit 2, 3, 4 weeks later and see what comes out. Try to look at it on a less emotional level. Look at your pictures in a way that is detached from the moment, from the time that you were there, and see what comes out. Often then, you pick out a different set of photos, you analyze things in a different way, and you can pull different stories out of your photos. I did it once where, these are my favorite photos, but what if I based a story around this person? I put pictures to tell a story around that one person that I met. You can analyze and you can assess your photos at a later date and bring different elements out. And, that no one else was with you on that trip. Potentially, yeah, your friends were, but if you're showing it to a wider audience, they all weren't there. So it's actually more important to be emotionally detached from the pictures and show what are purely the best photos or purely which are photos that show a story in a different way. So training yourself to look at your photos later, training yourself to detach yourself emotionally from the photo, training yourself to look at your pictures on a purely pictorial level or a purely storytelling level or getting your attention across level rather than how you felt or what you saw or what you were doing at the time is a great way to get your attention across to your viewer. Remember that other people that look at your photos probably weren't with you. The vast audience probably weren't there. So you need to be thinking of them as your audience. Do your photos tell the story you want to? To people that weren't there at the time, are the pictures you're selecting the best ones that tell a story or that show what you want to show rather than what you felt at the time or we have a little bias connection to because you know how hard you worked to get that shot? Disconnect yourself from all that. Purely pick your best photos. Disconnecting emotionally from your photos, from the time that you were there, is a really good way to train yourself to produce a better body of work and produce better photos to show to people. So next time you're out with your camera, take one of these lessons, take all of these lessons, put them into practice. It doesn't happen overnight, but these are like training exercises, right? The prime lens thing is a long-term thing, or detach yourself emotionally is a long-term thing to try. Moving yourself around is a new habit to get into. All of these things are habits. And you will train yourself, like you train a muscle, you will train yourself and your eye to see better photos by doing these things. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a magic bullet. Some training exercises, some things to do. And if you practice these things regularly, you will start to develop a better eye for photography and your pictures will become more intentional and your pictures will be more satisfying for you to look at.